Welcome to Uncle Jimmy's podcast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome into Uncle Jimmy's podcast. I'm just going to go over a few things before we get into today's show. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Uncle Jimmy's Podcast. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and all streaming platforms there are. You can also follow us on X at Uncle Jimmy's Pod. You can contact the show at unclejimmyspodcast@gmail.com or call into the show and leave a voicemail or a text at 617-777-2952. I'd like to give a big shout out to the show's sponsor, at Ferg's Customs Cards. What he does is unique. He creates a card for anything. If you can think of it, he can create it. Go follow him at Ferg's Custom Cards on Facebook and Instagram. Now let's hop right in. I'm a bit under the weather, so my voice is off a little bit, but we're going to hop right in. Mayor Michelle Wu, the incumbent mayor. On Tuesday night, she got 72% of the vote, 66,398 votes. She had a commanding lead, nearly tripling her closest rival, Josh Kraft. He got 23.1% of the vote, 21,324 votes. Kraft ran on a change platform but struggled to gain traction. Domingos DeRosa, he got 2.6%, 2,409 votes. And Robert Capici, a former Boston police officer, got 2.2%, with 2,074 votes. Key takeaways from Tuesday night: Wu's margin is historic. No Boston mayor has lost re-election since 1949. And every preliminary winner in the past 50 years has gone on to win the general. Kraft, he has since suspended his campaign, citing the overwhelming results and pledging to redirect his efforts towards community initiatives like Mass and Cass and Operation Exit. Wu's momentum was boosted by her national stance on sanctuary city policies and her vocal opposition to Trump-era immigration enforcement. After suspending his 2025 Boston mayoral campaign, Josh Kraft pledged to donate $3 million of his remaining campaign and personal funds to organizations addressing homelessness, addiction, and former inmate reintegration. He chose to redirect his resources rather than continue into the general election after finishing a distant second to incumbent mayor Michelle Wu in the preliminary election. That's a understatement. That he finished a distant second. He lost by 50%, a little less than 50%. Josh was my guy. He was out there doing his thing, hitting all the places he had to, but Michelle Wu has a grip on Boston. Everyone I talked to, every last person that I talked to, nobody was voting for Wu. But again, she won by more than 50%, so a lot of those people I was talking to didn't want to admit it. But for me, when it comes to politics, you have to pick your person, pick your candidate, and go with it. In a democracy that we have, you win, and you win. At the end of the day, nobody loses. We still have someone that represents us. We may not like the decisions. We may not like their platform, but they're still leading us. Michelle Wu is still the leader of the city of Boston, and I respect the office and I respect her. So following his withdrawal on September 11, 2025, Kraft announced the allocation of his funds left over from the campaign. He's going to target the Mass and Cass crisis. A portion of the money is intended for organizations working to resolve the humanitarian crisis in the area of Mass and Cass, which is affected by homelessness and substance abuse. He's going to be supporting rehabilitation. The Gavin Foundation and the Phoenix, which provide addiction recovery programs, will receive funds. And also, assisting former inmates. He will also re-energize the program known as Operation Exit, which offers job training for formerly incarcerated individuals. Josh Kraft is going to take the remaining $3.1 million he has left and put it towards Mass and Cass, Operation Exit, and he's going to support rehabilitation. An unbelievable move by a man that who I truly helped out on the campaign and, did a few things and met him a few times. Great guy. And to bow out because the writing was on the wall, lost by almost 50%. So he backs out, donates the money. He's going to help donate the money to all those programs and do something right with it. Josh Kraft is a great guy. He worked hard, but it just wasn't in the cards. So then we're going to go citywide. The citywide Boston City Council citywide candidates. At the end, there's going to be 4 that are left, and there's 8 that moved on to the election in November. You have candidate Ruth Z. Lejeune. I'm not saying that right. I always butcher it. But she's council president. She got 17.7% of the vote with 26,651 votes. Julia Mejia, she's the incumbent councilor. She got 17% at 25,776. Erin Murphy, she's an incumbent councilor. She got 16.5% of the vote with 24,934. And Henry Santana, an incumbent councilor, got 13% with 19,712. The challengers advancing to November. These 4 challengers made the cut and will compete for one of the 4 seats. Frank Baker, Alexander Valdez. Frank came in. He's a former District 3 councilor with 11.4%. He got 17,195. Alexander Valdez, she's a civic engagement advocate. She got 7.7%, 11,626 votes. Marvin D., community organizer, got 5.7, 8,660 votes. And Will Anua, equity and inclusion strategist, got 4.6%. He got 6,999 votes. What's at stake? Lujan Strong showing as council president mirrors her citywide appeal. She's now seen as a rising political force, such like Michelle Wu and Ayanna Pressley before her. Frank Baker's comeback bid is notable. He's a vocal critic of Mayor Wu, and his success may hinge on whether he can peel support from Henry Santana, who barely held on to the 4th spot. Santana's vulnerability is real. He struggled to qualify for the ballot earlier this year, and Mayor Michelle Wu's team had to rally to get him across the line. I myself voted for Baker, Mejia, Murphy, and Anua. And for me, the MVP of the city council, I say this all the time, is Erin Murphy. She is lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes Boston 24/7. You have a problem, you call Erin. You got an issue, you call Erin. You want to let her know what's going on in the community, you call Erin. Again, I'm loving the reporting on the politics in the city, and I'm just hoping you guys like what you're hearing. There's a lot going on in the city. We're going to get into, what I usually do is a little bit of politics and then some crime, what's going on in the city with some crime and some big stories either across the city or across the nation. So we're going to jump right into it. Around 12:45 a.m. Friday morning, officers approached a group of individuals in a park. One man fled, and during the pursuit, he opened fire on the police. One officer was shot in the arm. His injuries are non-life-threatening. The officers returned fire, striking the suspect multiple times in the legs. A high-capacity firearm with an extended magazine was recovered at the scene. Both the officer and the suspect were hospitalized. 3 additional officers were taken in for observation. The suspect is under arrest and will be formally charged once released. The city's response? Police Commissioner Michael Cox and Mayor Michelle Wu both addressed the incident. Tonight is another reminder of the kinds of risks our officers face 24 hours a day, Wu said, adding that she visited the wounded officer and expressed gratitude for the emergency response. This shooting underscores the volatility of street-level encounters and the growing concern over illegal firearms in Boston. And it constantly keeps happening. Not that cops are getting shot every night, and not that there are shootings in the city of Boston every night, but there is a lot of violence. We are not the safest city in America, unfortunately, as Mayor Wu likes to say. She loves to say Boston is the safest city in America. We are not. There are pockets. You can go to Back Bay. You can go to up where the State House is, Beacon Hill. Those areas are safe, but Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, those are we're not safe. That's just unbelievable. Cop shot, victim, they returned fire, shot the assailant who shot the cop, and they are both going to survive. We have to stop the violence, especially on the streets. And then UMass Boston, there was a shooting scare. No gunfire confirmed, but campus shaken. On Thursday, September 12th, a report of shots fired at UMass Boston's East Residence Hall triggered a massive police response and campus lockdown. Students received emergency alerts urging them to shelter in place. Armed officers swept through dorms and academic buildings, some reportedly entering with rifles drawn. Despite the chaos, no evidence of gunfire or injuries were found. The university canceled all classes and activities for the evening out of caution. Students described the experience as terrifying. Many ran barefoot from the buildings, unsure whether the commands they heard were from police or a potential shooter. One student said, "I grabbed a pool stick because I was scared. I didn't know what to do." While no actual shooting occurred, the incident underscores heightened anxiety around public safety on campuses and the speed at which misinformation or unconfirmed reports can escalate into full-blown emergency responses. I can tell you I'm driving home on Thursday, and all of a sudden I see, boom, woo, 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 cop car, Boston Police State. They're going down the boulevard. I'm just sitting at the light, going down the boulevard. And they're passing the JFK campus. JFK, I always call it JFK UMass, but the UMass campus. So I'm in the far left lane, and all of a sudden I see a convoy of police cars coming. They're beeping. They got their lights on. Everybody's moving. I take a left into UMass Boston because I think they're going down to the boulevard because the other cops did. But nope, they went right into Boston. They went right into UMass. So I go up to UMass. I have no option but to go through. And what I saw was cops running around. They had cops running into buildings, kids running out. They had rifles drawn. EMT guys, I saw them with, they had on like black helmets. It was scary. It was out of control. I mean, I'm going to put up some photos today on Instagram and Facebook, and you can check it out. But it was absolutely terrifying. I didn't have a clue what was going on. I called my uncle. I called my brother, told him to turn on the news. What the fuck's going on? The cops got long guns. They're running around the campus. Just a lot going on. But thank God everybody was safe and nothing happened. But it was very, very scary. Very scary. And it underscores a lot of people right now are scared with what's going on in this country. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But next thing I want to get into is late night cell phone theft surge in nightlife district. Boston police issued a public warning after a spike in cell phone thefts targeting people leaving bars and clubs between 11:30 p.m. and 2 a.m. in downtown Back Bay, Fenway, and Seaport. The thieves have posed as rideshare drivers or offered unsolicited help. Victims were coerced into handing over phones, which were then used to access Apple Pay, Venmo, crypto wallets, and even sports betting apps like DraftKings. Photos released show suspects entering a red car with Arkansas plates. Then you also have pickpocketing and shoulder surfing tactics. In several cases, Down there, suspects used distraction techniques, asking to borrow phones, offering to take photos, or watching victims enter passcodes before stealing devices. Once inside, they drained accounts and made fraudulent purchases. Police are urging residents to avoid sharing phones, use biometric locks, and report suspicious behavior immediately. This is an ongoing investigation, and the BPD has put out a public appeal. The Boston PD is actively investigating and asking anyone with information to come forward. The department emphasized that these crimes are organized and tech-savvy, not random acts. This week's pattern reflects a troubling blend of nightlife vulnerability and digital exploitation. So next up, we got a story from West Barnstable. A former NHL and one-time Boston Bruin was arraigned in Barnstable District Court Friday, September 12th, after police say he tried to rendezvous with what he thought was a 16-year-old girl, but actually turned out to be a Barnstable police detective. Eric Nicholas, 50, of West Barnstable, was charged with enticement of a child under 18 by using electronic communication, according to the police. After several back-and-forth texts, Nicholas agreed to a meeting time and place and $150 for some fun FS. According to the cops, FS means full service, typically sexual intercourse with oral sex with regards to commercial sex activity. He was well aware that the person he was texting was 16 years old, and detectives were on hand when Nicholas pulled into the Hyannis apartment complex where the meetup was supposed to be held, and he was taken into custody without incident, police said. Absolutely crazy. Great job by the police on the Cape and Hyannis. Great job in the Boston police. You know, let's pray for the officer that was shot. And, we need to stem this tide in our country right now. So on September 7th, there was a big drug bust in Roxbury. Jorge Ramirez, 45, was arrested in Roxbury after a multi-district drug control operation. Officers recovered 62 grams of cocaine, 65 grams of crack cocaine, some hidden inside candles, drug paraphernalia, plastic bags, gloves, scales, and multiple phones. Ramirez was charged with trafficking cocaine. And then September 9th, there was an ICE Operation Patriot 2.0. ICE agents arrested several individuals in Boston as part of a federal sweep targeting criminal illegal immigrants. Among those arrested, Joshua Gonzalez Baez, 24, charged with trafficking heroin, morphine, opium, and drug distribution. Paulo Lima Borges, 39, convicted of possession with intent to distribute cocaine and heroin. The operation focused on high-risk offenders with violent and drug-related charges. September 8th, Marion Raid, Greater Boston area. A family-run drug empire was dismantled in a coordinated raid involving state and local police. 7 individuals were arrested. Seized multiple kilos of fentanyl and cocaine, firearms, and cash. Though centered in Marion, the network had ties to Boston distribution routes. The following individuals were arrested. Defendant 1, Spencer Mello. Trafficking fentanyl plus 31 grams. Trafficking cocaine, 439 grams. Distribute Class A, fentanyl. Possession with intent to distribute Class C, mushrooms. Possession with intent to distribute Class B, oxy. Conspiracy to violate Controlled Substance Act. Defendant 2, Travis Mello. Trafficking cocaine, 200 plus grams. Trafficking fentanyl, 32 grams. Possession with intent to distribute cocaine, 4 grams. Subsequent offenses, conspiracy to violate the Controlled Substance Act. Defendant 3, Niles Mello. Trafficking cocaine, 200 plus grams. Conspiracy to violate Controlled Substance Act. Defendant 4, Jamie Morris. Possession, Class B, subsequent offense. Conspiracy to violate Controlled Substance Act. Defendant 5, Jordan Pabon. Felony warrants for home invasion, armed assault, and other crimes of violence. Defendant 6, Alexander Ard. Possession of Class A fentanyl, purchased from S. Mello. Defendant 7, Jeffrey Evans. OUI alcohol, failure to stop the police. All suspects are considered innocent until proven guilty. The narcotic transaction search warrant led to those 7 arrests. The activity resulted in the seizure of 840 grams of cocaine and crack cocaine, 63 grams of fentanyl, numerous oxycodone pills, 45 grams of psilocybin, which is mushrooms, 7,000 in U.S. currency, pending official count. Absolutely crazy, Just some drug busts in the area. Great job by all the cops. They're just kicking down doors and doing what they're supposed to. And then here we are, another week, and another school shooting. A 16-year-old was identified as the suspect in the shooting that injured 2 students at Evergreen High School on Wednesday. The gunman later took his own life. He went through the school, shooting doors, shooting windows, just absolutely out of control. 16 years old, his whole life ahead of him. And he makes this decision to do that. Absolutely crazy. Wow. Where we're going as a nation, I don't know. But next up, we're going to get into a few things. And we're going to have some deep conversations. I'll be right back. Now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this podcast today. The Pew Research's political typology is one of the most nuanced frameworks out there. It goes beyond party lines to map out how Americans think, feel, and vote across 9 distinct groups. So, in America we have basically the Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. But the Pew Research has broken it down. So you have the Republican-leaning groups. One, you have the faith and flag conservatives. They are deeply religious, highly patriotic, strong support for military, school prayer, and traditional values. They're most likely to believe America stands above all other countries and often skeptical of immigration and racial equity efforts. 2, committed conservatives. They're pro-business, pro-trade, small government advocates. Less hardline on immigration and race than faith and flag. They support traditional Republican policies but more pragmatic. Then 3, you have the populist right. Economically anxious, culturally conservative, distrustful of elites, corporations, and institutions. Strong anti-immigration stance, skeptical of globalism. Then you have the ambivalent right. Younger, less politically engaged. Mix of conservative views with openness to progressive ideas. They support same-sex marriage and marijuana legalization, but lean Republican. Then you have the Democratic-leaning groups, the progressive left, young, highly educated, deeply liberal, strong focus on racial justice, climate change, and systemic reform, critical of capitalism and U.S. global dominance, most likely to support sweeping government intervention. Then you have the establishment liberals, loyal Democrats optimistic about the system. They supported Biden, trust institutions, and they favor incremental change. Less radical than progressives, left, but still socially liberal. Then you have the Democratic mainstays. They're older, racially diverse, deeply loyal to the party, more moderate on cultural issues, strong belief in government's role in helping the vulnerable. 8, then you have the outsider left, disillusioned with both parties. They support progressive policies but distrust institutions, often younger and less politically active. Then you have the cross-cutting group, the stressed sideliners, politically disengaged, economically struggling, mixed views, low trust in government, less likely to vote or identify with any party, often feel left out of political conversations entirely. Which one are you? To me, I don't care which one you are. I really don't. That's what's great about America. We should be able to have healthy conversations and healthy talks. No violence. Violence is unacceptable. And, there's been too much violence. In 2017, we had a congressional baseball practice shooting. A gunman opened fire on Republican members of Congress practicing for a charity baseball game.
Steve Scalise, the House Majority Leader, was shot and critically wounded. Several others were also wounded, including U.S. Capitol police officers and congressional staffers. In 2020, there was a plot to kidnap Michigan governor. Right-wing militia members conspired to abduct Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, but were unsuccessful. Then in 2022, you had an attack on Paul Pelosi. The husband of then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was attacked with a hammer in his home. His attacker was a believer in conspiracy theories. Then Donald Trump's first attempt in 2024, while campaigning in Butler, Pennsylvania, the former president was grazed by a bullet in an assassination attempt. A member of the audience was killed. Then Donald Trump's second attempt and a second assassination attempt in 2025. Federal agents foiled the plot targeting the then former president while he played golf in Florida. Then you had Melissa Hartman. The Minnesota state representative was murdered in her home in June of 2025. Her husband was also killed, and the state senator and his wife were injured in the same attack. And this was what brings us to what's up next. Charlie Kirk. On Wednesday, you all have probably seen the video by now and seen what happened. Just tragic. He's the conservative activist and founder of Turning Point USA. He was fatally shot while speaking on the Utah Valley campus. I don't care if you were a believer, were a follower of Charlie Kirk, whether you liked him, whether you disliked him. This man was shot and killed because people disagreed with what he had to say. We live in America, the greatest country in the world. It's called freedom of speech. We have it. Whether you like him or not, he has free speech. And what we all witnessed on Wednesday and what his wife and his kids and everybody at that event and had to witness was absolutely tragic, barbaric. A young man, 31 years old, Charlie Kirk was. Whether you loved him or hated him, what he did was free speech. And a lot of people hate him because of his affiliations and ties with Donald Trump. Again, hate and love are two strong words. But there's no room for violence in politics. And what we all witnessed on Wednesday was an assassination. It was terrible. It was, I opened my phone and was on X and I saw it and sick to my stomach. Sick to my stomach, and then sick to my stomach that people were happy and cheering that Charlie Kirk was killed because of his free speech. Because he was about things that they weren't about, or didn't say things that they liked, or didn't say things that they aligned with. But that doesn't matter in America. Free speech. He should have the right to do that. You know, I didn't know much about Charlie Kirk, and I tried to look him up before, and I was out in Minnesota visiting my nephew and was talking to him, and he was telling me how he was going to see him. Charlie Kirk was coming to his campus, and I was asking him, you know, like, what do you mean he's coming to your campus? And that's when I found out he was doing a tour, and, you know, my nephew and I had a conversation about it, and it opened my eyes that, you know, Charlie Kirk goes out and he debates kids, college-age kids, and gives them a forum. He tells them, they ask a question, he gives an answer, and they go back and forth. But it was open dialogue, you know, and that's what we need in this country is open dialogue. We don't need hateful rhetoric. We don't need hate speech. We don't need violence. There's a wife now, Charlie's wife, who is now a widow. There's 2 kids that don't have a dad. It's tough. We're at a crossroads right now in America. And I'm calling on President Trump, J.D. Vance. I'm calling on them to first tone down the rhetoric. It needs to stop. We don't need to do it anymore.
We don't need to fight over everything. We can agree to disagree, or we can agree to agree. Let's have healthy dialogue, healthy conversation. Let's move forward, not backwards. Calling on Representative Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House. You have the Republican leadership, Representative Steve Scalise, Tom Emmer, Lisa McClain, Kevin Hearn. And then the Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar, Ted Lieu, Joe Neguse. And that's in the House. And then in the Senate, I'm calling on President pro tempore Chuck Grassley, Majority Leader John Thune, and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, for all of us to get together and let's start seeing the light that America is, the light that should be shining bright for all of us in America. Times are tough right now. People are struggling. Bills aren't getting paid. Some people don't have enough to put food on the table. But the violence needs to stop. The Democrats, Republicans, everyone's to blame. So let's just cut it off at the pass. Stop blaming one another. Stop fueling the fire. And let's get back to doing what we can. Let's get back to being the greatest country in the world, the beacon of light for the world. We need to stop fighting one another. It's not helping anyone. Like I said, look at Charlie Kirk, assassinated. The 2 politicians in Minnesota, one killed, one injured. What are we doing? Politics is not a place where violence is going to solve anything. In politics, words and actions are going to solve the issues. Violence never solves any issues. Nothing. Violence does not solve anything. We really need to get our heads out of our asses. We need to stop with the liberals, the left, the right, the wingbats, the nuts, the Dems, the Republicans. We all need to start thinking Americans. As Americans, we're all Americans. We can agree to disagree. But come on now. Violence is not the answer. Again, the whole world witnessed Charlie Kirk get assassinated. The whole world did. It reminded me of the videos of, and I'm not saying he was on the level of JFK, but like that. Just something that will go down in history. That nobody should have to experience because they're giving their views, they're giving their opinions. Like I said, what happened to the days of if you didn't like what someone was saying, you turned and left and walked away? What about the days of you're watching TV and you don't agree with something, you change the program? The conversation I had with my nephew about him going to Charlie Kirk coming to his campus was, he was excited. He wasn't a fan of him either, but he was excited because it gets everybody, liberals, far right, far left, conservatives. It gets everyone together in one place. If you look at those videos before what happened with Charlie Kirk, look at all those people. There's 3,000 people there. And you're telling me there was 3,000 fans of Charlie Kirk? No, all those people weren't fans of his. But everybody was there, about to have healthy dialogue, healthy conversations. And like I said, whether you like them or not, no one deserves to be killed. No one deserves to be shot like that at all. No one deserves. Violence is not the answer. Every day in America, violence is done on the streets of America. You saw the poor Ukrainian girl stabbed and killed. You see the shootings in Chicago. You see the Boston cop that was just shot here Friday morning. You see violence every day in America. You've seen the guy up in Queens, I think, that killed the 2 elderly people and lit their house on fire. Violence does not solve anything. I can tell you right now that, I will be returning to church Saturday. Today, I'm going to go to 4 p.m. Mass. Something about this week, 9/11, the whole thing with Charlie Kirk assassination. Just a lot. And it's pushing me closer to back to where it all started, St. Anne's Church. And, I'm not a big Bible thumper or anything like that, but, I'm going back to church. But again, violence is no reason for violence. And again, we've become so desensitized to it that people think, it's how it should be. It's how it goes. Well, fuck, no, that's not how it goes. Again, we need to do better. We need to be better. Again, just a tough week. Like I said, the 9/11, 24 years on Thursday. I remember being in Catholic Memorial High School in Dennis Golden's class, Mr. Golden, and Mr. T came in and he said, put the TV on. And no sooner did we get the TV on, the second plane was crashing into the building. It looked like a movie. I didn't believe it. And shortly after, the plane went into the Pentagon. And it was just a day that I'll never forget. Just like Wednesday with Charlie Kirk. It's a day I'll never forget. He built up that turning point since he was 18 years old, turned it into what it is, to be slain by a gunman on a college campus for exercising his freedom of speech. Where the fuck have we come in America where people were celebrating it? People were thinking it's okay, saying that he deserved it. And it's fucking bullshit. Nobody deserves that. Again, we live in the greatest country in the world. And we need to get back to that. We need to start getting back to looking out for our neighbors, looking out for our family, looking out for our community, looking out for our city, looking out for our state, and looking out for our country. Because we're all Americans. And we're all in this together. Peace and love. Peace and love. Uncle Jimmy out.